Hey, welcome back to the Divergent Hope podcast. And this is season 2. We're thrilled you're here to visit us. And we just want to say that we want to remind you to please, on whatever your platform you're listening to this on, to go and leave a review or a like. We check those out and we're thrilled when you do. Today, we are actually going to be talking about Sabbath. Living into Sabbath and what that means. And we have a great group of guests here today, as we always do. Nate Killian, who's rejoining us from last season. Hey, welcome back.
A friend
of the pod. And Nate is on staff here at Faith Community Church. We are outside of Boston. I'm a pastor here at Faith Community Church. And Nate is actually our associate director of video productions here at church. And he also is a filmmaker and a content creator. Mm-hmm. Check him out on YouTube.
Oh, a little plug there. Thank you, Laurel.
And then we have Amanda Alvarez. Thank you, Amanda, for coming and being with us. She is an English, you actually, for first, second, and third graders, you are English, remind me again.
You can call it, there's so many different names.
Yeah.
The ML teacher, multilingual teacher, English as a second language teacher.
Yes.
I go ESL teacher.
ESL, I was going to say that, but I was like, I don't think that's quite right. Anyway, so glad you're here.
Thank you.
And Amanda also loves to journal and to watch movies. I love watching movies. So one time we'll have to do that together.
I would love that.
That would be so much fun.
That Maybe we'll. That
could be a podcast. Absolutely.
Yep.
So much fun. Yeah. So, today I wanted to talk about Sabbath with you both. Mainly because I think, you're both quite a bit younger than me, and I wanted to see where you were at with the concept of Sabbath, what you think about it, and what ways you are finding helpful to practice it as well as not so much. And what ways, too, that you're like, I struggle with this about Sabbath. Because Sabbath is something in our lives as Christ followers that is evolving, and will change in different seasons of our lives how we practice it. So we're going to launch in and have some fun. So how do you actually define or understand Sabbath initially? What does it mean to you?
You can go for it, Amanda.
Sure. I'm going to start off by saying it's a gift from God. I didn't always see it that way. I used to see it as like a discipline, something that I have to do because it says it in the Bible. And, but now I see it more of a delight. I've kind of gotten into that way of seeing it, and I'm grateful. And I didn't just come up with that. God did say it to the people of Israel when he had... I love this, how he was providing them with manna every day. And on the 6th day, he was like, actually, I'm going to provide you double so you don't have to go out and gather. Yeah. And some people still wanted to go back and gather on the 7th day and look for more food.
Yeah.
And then he said, don't they see that this is a gift? This is a gift from me. So I see it as stopping a day a week from work, like just resting a day a week from our work activities. That's the simplest way I see it now.
That is just a beautiful way to describe it, a gift, because that is what it is. And I loved how you tied it into the manna thing. Don't you see that it's a gift that you don't have to work today?
Right.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Right.
How about you, Nate?
Yeah, I would say very similar. It was, for me, I think this is a term that you taught me, Laurel, actually, was it's my day to pray and play.
Yes.
And it's a day without the have-tos. So I am somebody that I can get really caught up and wired in getting ahead and maximizing my time and, being 27 and on social media. The current thing is productivity culture. I think it's a little different from hustle culture, but it's productivity culture in that, like, you are constantly getting things done. And I can get really caught up in that if I'm on social media too much. So for a while, it was really difficult to find a time where I wasn't trying to get ahead. This is like, so I take my Sabbath on Fridays because I work Sunday through Thursday. But there was a time where it's like, oh, Friday's my day off. I need to, do all the stuff around the house. I need to work on my personal ambitions now. I need to, get all the things done that I don't get done during the weekend. I found that, even though I had Saturday off, that's my family time. That's the time I make plans to go do things and, with my wife or with my family or my friends. And I'm somebody that really needs alone time and I need to have an empty schedule. And I just started to burn out. So as I learned about the Sabbath, I learned that's my day to not have to think about any of those things. I can just play, I can pray, and I can go at my own pace. I don't need to get ahead. God can get a lot more done in 6 days than I can in 7.
Yes, that's right.
So that was something I had to learn about in doing it. But.
So true. Yeah, so true. So what are some of both of your favorite things to do on the Sabbath? Highlights. Yeah.
I will say right before Sabbath, the feeling of, obviously nothing's ever finished.
Right.
But the feeling of okay, we were able to finish the things that needed to get done, and now I can just stop. You know what I mean? Just that initial feeling of okay, did the grad school work, did all the things for work, did the stuff around the house, that the basic things, just that breath that you can take. And so I love to be able, when Oscar, my husband, who's a firefighter, when he's not working, because, their schedule is a lot different than a teacher schedule, for us to just relax on a Saturday night and know that work is behind us. Yeah. I love to sleep in. My Sabbath is typically a Sunday.
Yeah.
Just to sleep in an extra hour. Yeah. Maybe 2, depending, just to sleep. I mean, I'm going to preface this too by saying I am married, but I do not have kids. So I know probably the people listening that are like, but I have 3 children running around. Sorry. But for me, just to be able to sleep a bit more, enjoy, like to have a big breakfast if we can, be a part of our church community. And I love to take a nap.
Yes.
Take a glorious holy nap. That might be my favorite.
Yes,
and I'm really good at that.
Yeah.
I would say I can just lay on a Sunday afternoon and just take a nap.
Love that.
Love that. And just by that point, midday, at that point, it's just I've had some time. Sometimes it takes me that antsy, hours in the beginning to be whoa, I got like you were saying, Nate, all the things I have to still do and I have to do tomorrow. Once you get over that hump and then you can just take a nap. I mean, there are other things too, but those are some of the big ones for me.
Yeah.
I love.
I am big on sleeping in on the Sabbath. Sabbath has to have that, So and I love taking naps, but I find now if I do that it might be harder to get to sleep that night, so I don't do it as much. But I get it. Yeah, it's great. How about you, Nate?
Yep, I sleep in. Similarly, I love the feeling of I have nothing to do. I got all the stuff done tomorrow. So actually, Thursday I prepare, right? Thursday I prepare the Sabbath. There's dishes in the sink. They're getting done. So I'm not doing them tomorrow.
Right, that's right.
Anything trash get taken out. That's Thursday's a busy day because Fridays are coming.
Yep.
And I sleep in as well. I will sleep in, and I get up at my own pace, and whenever that is. And my favorite thing, and I really do, I do the same thing every single Sabbath, and I love it. And I'll get in my car. I'll bring my Bible, my journal, whatever book I'm currently reading, and I head down to my favorite coffee shop.
Ooh, nice.
And I will I'll get a medium cold brew black.
Oh, wow.
Yep, every time. And then I'll sit at the coffee shop, or there's a dam, the Charles River and South Natick Dam. It's right across the street. So I'll either take my coffee over there and sit outside and just like chill by the water, or I stay in the coffee shop and I'll bring my headphones. I listen to like worship music. I will.
Sorry, allergy season, everyone.
Problem,
yeah.
No problem.
Yep.
No problem. I'll listen to music. I'll read. I'll do a devotional. I'll journal my prayers, whatever. And then I will go back into the coffee shop or go up to the counter. I will order a bagel, an everything bagel with cream cheese. Every single time. I call it my shabagel or my Shabbat.
I love it.
And
That's great.
It is.
My shabagel. And then I'll just hang there until I feel like I want to leave. So a big thing for me on the Sabbath is I really try to allow God to tell me how I'm going to, I allow God to lead me in how I'm going to connect with him and how we're going to hang out. So if it's reading the Bible, we're going to do that. If it's doing a devotional, we're going to do that. If we're going to listen to a podcast, we're going to do that. If it's going to sit in quiet by the river, we're going to do that. If I'm going to listen to ambient dreamscapes on Spotify, I'm going to do that, so I'll do that for a couple hours. Then I'll go back and I try to just do the things that refresh me throughout the day. The things that I find myself craving throughout the week. And I'm a big TV and movie guy, as you know. And so right now, my Friday, which it will be tomorrow, I'm going to binge watch a little Modern Family.
Wow.
It is right now my favorite show. So
Yep.
I'm going to do that
Yep.
after I get home from the coffee shop. And then, I'll watch a movie. Like I do all that stuff. Pray and play. That's the big things. Those are the big things.
That sounds glorious.
Doesn't it?
Glorious.
Yeah.
And I always like to say too that it's like what you're saying about journaling and praying and stuff. It feels different to me because my brain is so much less crazy and distracted, right? Like, and I love how you get away and you have that routine, but then you're not stuck to a list of like, I need to do this, 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 and this, because then it kind of defeats the purpose, right?
Exactly.
You're giving it to God and God's directing you. So thank you for that. I really enjoy how you process that. That's neat.
Thanks.
That's really neat.
That was something that actually, again, Laurel taught me that. Hey, listener, you could get a lot from Laurel.
There you go.
Okay. That was. I mean, because I used to only think like, oh, my Sabbath is when I go read my Bible and I pray,
Right.
and like the Sabbath used to be pretty boring.
You're right.
And
Exactly.
there are times even now where like I get a little bored with my routine. Like after I'm done watching my 8th episode of Modern Family, I'm like, well, what do I do now?
Now
I've got
what?
6
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
Like I have what I'm doing at 6 p.m., which is going to be watching a movie and cooking dinner and stuff.
Right.
But it's like, sometimes I do get bored. But Laurel has shown me in many ways that I can fill it with things that refresh me and allow God to.
So
move
what
me
might
that
be
way.
another thing you do, like after you watch your 7th or 8th episode? What would you do?
I do still love. So I love exercise. So I'll still go to the gym. Where the difference there though is that as much as that is something I do throughout the week, I usually do that like first thing in the morning during like a weekday. But on Sabbath, I go when I feel like going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's not a plan or
So,
schedule.
Exactly. And sometimes it's like, I don't want to. So I'm not gonna.
Yep.
Yep.
So good.
Yeah.
So
So
good.
that or go for a walk, things like that.
Even when I actually often don't exercise on my Sabbath because I don't particularly love exercise. I do it. So to me, that's a real break. But if I do it, I just decide I'm going to do like a slower pace of exercise. Yeah. Try to enjoy it more.
Yep. Like I'll do. So there are days where like this is such a gym bro thing to say, but I'm like, I'm doing arms today. Okay. I'm doing the things that make me feel very good about myself.
That's right. I love that.
Just
I
like
love
curls and all that stuff.
Do you do anything, and this is a question just off the top of my head, do you do anything unique in your devotion time or prayer time with God on the Sabbath and maybe you do during the rest of the week? I love how you talked about, Nate, that you let God lead that time, you know, which is so cool. But just wondering, do you do anything out of the ordinary in your time with God?
Yes and no. I think one thing is the biggest thing for me is just I take more time. I don't feel rushed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I take more time journaling, whatever I'm in with the word lately, just to just be able to sit in it more, you know. I'm just trying to think of anything else. I think if I'm reading a book too throughout the week, a Christian book too, like I might spend more time looking back and taking notes.
Yep.
And the other thing I used to do, I'm just saying this out loud because I want to remind myself to consider it. The other thing too is reflecting on previous like prayer journal things. I used to do that every Sunday. I kind of got out of it, honestly. But looking back and seeing what God's done with what I was worried about or what was going on, you know, it's so hard to take that time, you know, to look back like that, or even look at old pictures or old cards that were given. Just let that time to reflect on the past too. That's something that for me, it's hard for me to find any other time to really do that or the energy to do that, because it does require some energy, you know.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I mean, that actually is, it's called the spiritual discipline of remembering or remembrance. You know, when the Israelites crossed over and they, I think it was with Joshua, and they were told to get rocks from the riverbed and put them up and stack them up, what we might call a cairn today. But that was so they could come back with their children and remember what God had done. It's a similar idea. You go back to your journal to see what God has done in the past and remember. That's so good. Yeah. Love that. Even with photo albums, I mean, in a different way. Yeah. That's great. So cool. Are there things about Sabbath that you find particularly challenging sometimes, or what would they be? Like Nate, you even talked about if you start to get bored. What are some of the things about Sabbath that are challenging for you?
So I would say, actually, pretty recently, the challenge has been boredom. I've been thinking like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I got to find something else to add here. Because I do, I very much enjoy the first half of my Sabbath. And then there's just a part where I'm like, I feel like I'm just buying time until Emily
dinner.
Comes home from work. My wife Emily comes home from work, and we watch a movie together. That is one challenge that I face. I simultaneously, this isn't a challenge I face too much, actually. It works out for me because similar to Amanda, I don't have kids, and I have a non-traditional work schedule of Sunday to Thursday. So I typically am able to get my alone time, right? Like Emily goes off to work, and then I am usually alone. But there are times where the challenge is like, well, Emily doesn't have a client today. And I'm just should be like, no, don't hang out with me. I don't want to say that to her, but so the only challenge is, I guess, is like, if something comes up, and like Friday is my day, and I try to, or if a friend is like, hey, are you doing anything Friday? It's like, well, no, but also yes, I am. Right. So like, that's a good point. So it's kind of figuring out like, what an interesting problem to have. What's going to bring me the most refreshment?
Yes.
What's not going to feel like I have to?
Yes.
And what's kind of cool though is, Emily's, she knows like Friday's my Sabbath. She knows that's my time, and she sees the value in me being like having that alone time.
Yeah.
I have friends who are fully aware. They're like, oh yeah, Nate, like we're doing this Friday night. If you want to come. We all, like, I'm not going to bother asking you to do it during the day. And I will do things during the day with friends.
I'm
obviously,
sure you will.
If that's the play part. But yeah, like just when things come up on a Friday, like, do I move it to Saturday? Do I take a different day? Like and I can almost get too locked into the routine.
Yes. Right.
And not in like, well, if I don't take it Friday, then God's going to be upset. Like not like that at all. But it's just like, if I don't do it Friday, when do I do it? Yeah. That's really the only other challenge I see.
Do you ever struggle with I mean, I'm like you, Amanda, too, that I love the stop. We stop, and I'm like so ready and I so look forward to that. But do you ever then, while you're in Sabbath, struggle internally with thinking, oh, I need to do that, or I should do that, or is this really okay that I'm not, do you struggle with those thoughts? Yeah, I do too.
Actually,
a lot.
that was the first thing I was going to
Was
say.
it good? Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me, like as a teacher, I am constantly, my mind is constantly going. I haven't yet, I don't know what the word is, maybe giving it to God consistently enough where I'm constantly taking it back and trying to think of new things that I need to do. So it is difficult for me to slow my brain down. It probably takes sometimes a half a day.
Yeah.
Of a Sabbath. Thankfully, it's more than half a day.
Yes.
If we allow ourselves, but
That's right.
it's that half a day to kind of like decompress from all of it.
Absolutely.
So I certainly struggle with that a lot.
Yeah. I think that's, in that way, it feels always like a temptation, to pull me away. And then it gets annoying. It's like, you're taking away from my joy, I mean, I'm speaking to myself, but the sense of like, stop it. Just let it go. God can take care of this. And I know that, but sometimes I'm so in that, right? It's like a rut in our brains and I'm so in the rut. And to get detached from it, that might be a time where I need to do something really just very different than my typical Sabbath routine to get me out of that, right? Yeah. Even one time last year, I decided I haven't been into Boston in a long time. I love to go to the museum. I'm doing that for my Sabbath. So it turned out to be like a nice spring day, went in on the train and got off at a stop kind of far away so I could walk more and went into the MFA and just loved it. But it was also so good to do something different on my Sabbath than I typically do. Mm-hmm. And also I didn't find myself, because I wasn't home, I didn't find myself fighting the temptation as much because you're out and about doing other stuff, so that can help with that. Yeah.
See, if I did that, like if I was like, I'm going to do something different on my Sabbath, I would have to like fully plan it out to a T the day before. Because for me, like I kind of live like daily where my brain is going and thinking.
Right.
And so I think the reason I get so like, I'll just go to the coffee shop is because I don't have to think about that.
Yes.
I just
good
go
point.
there.
Good
and
point.
like, I know where I'm gonna get my coffee. I know where I'm gonna go if there's no seats open. I know like, all that stuff. Whereas like if I went into Seaport, I love Seaport. Me and Emily go into Seaport a lot. And when we go there, I would have to think a little more. I have to think about where am I going to park? Where are we going to go?
You sure would. That's
how much
true.
are we going to spend? Like what? All that stuff. Where I still could do that. I would just need to like do all the thinking in advance.
The day before.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I'm not a spontaneous Sabbath guy.
Yes.
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah, but I think that's good because you're also considering the energy you're putting into planning. Mm-hmm. And that is a type of work,
Yeah.
So are there things you kind of like a wish list on your Sabbath that you want to try or you want to do more of? Well,
there's one forming now. I can feel it.
Yeah, oh really? Yeah.
I'm going to go to Boston.
There you go.
Oh, that's great.
Another favorite place I love to go on my Sabbath is, and I like to do this in the middle of winter, is just go and look at the ocean. So I'll drive up to Gloucester. I love Gloucester. And I'll sit in Stage Fort Park, and you can park anywhere there. It's free at that time of year. And just park and look out at the ocean. And I'll take my journal and I'll journal in my car, just looking at the ocean in the dead of winter. And nobody's around, which I love, So again, it's just the getting away. Yeah. For me, the ocean is key to Sabbath. Well, not every time, but and and then maybe go out to a coffee shop after that. But yeah. So any other things that you want to do?
Well, it's funny you bring this up because I think it was 3 weeks ago now. I love having those friends in my life that are the adventurous, thinking of fun things type. I'm not wired naturally that way. I like my checklist and my things, whatever, my routines. But I remember when she invited me to go to Boston, actually.
Yeah.
Speaking of Boston.
Awesome, yeah.
She invited me to go bike around. What was it called? I forget. One of the beaches out there. Pleasure Bay. I don't know if you guys...
No.
Yeah,
Sounds
so
great.
it was really nice. And so I love the beach, and it was a beautiful day. And it's similar to what you said. I was like, wow, all these thoughts that are racing for me that take me so long to get over, I wasn't doing that. I was resting and enjoying. And so for me, I want to do more fun outings, with a friend or family or somebody, and I'm more extroverted. So I like my time of reflection, but too long is just too much for me.
Yeah.
So to go out and do something fun, especially when the weather's nice.
Oh, yeah.
I want to do
Absolutely.
more of that.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds so good.
Yeah, I would second that. I feel like, but like I've said, as of late, like there's just been like, I'm also extroverted, and I feel like I'm good on the alone thing.
Yeah.
Like I hit like midday, and I'm like, all right, enough of me.
Yeah, that's right.
And me and Emily will usually make plans on a Friday night or something. But yeah, I definitely would want to like explore more or find like another hobby that I can get into, because like I want to go to the movies more.
Yeah.
Like go out to the movies.
Yes.
And I've always kind of, even if I did that like by myself, I'm fine with doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like I don't have many hobbies, and I feel like sometimes I can't paint at all. So don't, like, if you were like, Nate, can you paint me something? It's gonna be like stick figures. But I've always thought like now would be a good time to paint.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like if I'm gonna do
Absolutely.
something, I can paint.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's very true. I actually thought I really enjoy mosaics. Don't have a lot of experience with them, but I often thought I could take a mosaics class on my Sabbath, like, because mine's Saturday usually. So that would be fun, something like that. What do you say to people other Christians who would struggle with all of us, because we all love movies on our Sabbath or binge watching? What would you say to people who are like, how can you do that on a Sabbath? How is that really, how is that really spending time with God? How is that holy? Like, what do you say to people?
First of all, I certainly judge people for different things, but I don't judge people for that question because I know my mind is that way.
Yeah.
The do's and don'ts sort of thing. And I think of the Pharisees when they were upset with Jesus, that they were picking grain, they were harvesting grain on the Sabbath. Right. And he said something, I have it down here somewhere. The Sabbath was made to meet the needs of people, and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even over the Sabbath. I think they got so concerned about the do's and don'ts that forgetting about what God's purposes are through them. And just because it's done a spiritual activity the whole day doesn't mean that God isn't with you and that you're with God. I mean, you can spend the day with him.
Absolutely.
Doing all these things, and he delights in that.
Yes.
When we invite him into it with us too. So I just... Seeing it as a do's and don'ts list, I think we're missing the point.
The spirit of it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. How about you, Nate? Has anyone ever, commented like, are you kidding me? You're going to binge watch on the Sabbath? I don't know. Maybe not in your generation. Maybe more my generation, baby boomers who'd be like, seriously, that's allowed on the Sabbath?
No, I mean, I would say the problem my generation tends to run into is you take a Sabbath.
Right.
You take a day to not do anything.
That's why we're doing this podcast, actually. Right.
And that's the thing is like, I get that more because I used to look at the Sabbath as like, how? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
the Sabbath is just a state of mind.
Yeah.
And like,
Oh, gosh,
as
that's
long as I
great.
feel rested in my work,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
and
that's
like,
right.
my mind changed about that. But yeah, I mean, very similar to what Amanda said. It's just like it is the posture of like, I'm not just like, binge watching to do it. And I'm not just watching a movie to watch the movie. Like, it's a time where I'm like, I know this refreshes me,
Yes.
and I'm simultaneously going, God, I'm just going to rest with you and rest in you.
Yes.
Awesome. Knowing that I can do this right now.
Yeah.
And like, it's okay.
Yeah.
And I don't, everything that I could be doing, you got it covered.
Yeah.
So that's more that it can, and then finding those activities where maybe it does really feel like, yeah, I'm doing this with God.
Yeah.
Like, you're playing basketball, or
Yeah.
you're sitting down with a friend having these types of conversations. And yeah, obviously the more holy things appear to be like, well, I prayed and I journaled and I read and I did my devotional. And it's like, yeah, but God's in every moment.
That's
so,
right.
Like if if you're only spending time with him, when you journal or and you only think of it that way, I always go back to, I'm going to totally misquote this, but paraphrase, whatever you do, whether you eat or drink, do it all to the glory of God.
Yes. Yeah.
I hope I crushed that.
Good job. You
think
did.
I did.
You got that
I think
one.
I did.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
scholarly. No, I'm kidding.
That's scholarly. Very good. Yeah.
But like, I think about that, and it's like, whatever you binge, whatever you movie you watch, do it all for the glory of God.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
So,
and I think about it, and I know it's true for all of us because, Amanda, you're a reader as well as loving to watch movies, but story is so refreshing to me, and getting into story. I mean, I don't know, probably halfway through my life, I was like story is everything. And this as a filmmaker, but oh my gosh, first of all, it helps me detach a little bit, which is part of Sabbath, right?
Yep.
Detach from my world and my life and work and me, and get into other story, and then think about, I just go there, and I know you both do too, like about God and that story, or like looking for redemptive themes or whatever. It can be so cool to do that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And and I would say, like, to the person who's hearing me say binge, it's not just like I'm mindlessly consuming something.
Right.
It's exactly what you're saying. I look to story because it helps me detach from my self and my world and my to-dos and whatever.
Yep.
But it's deeply refreshing.
Yes.
And I can get in their world. I empathize well with characters, and like me and Emily are watching Lord of the Rings right now, and it's just like a totally different world, and I don't have to think about all the stuff I have to do tomorrow.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah.
And I mean, we all know people, and you both might be some of these people too, but playing games is like that too, or can be like that for people. Whether it's electronic games or physical games, just getting into that and detaching. It can be doing art, whatever it is, whatever helps you detach from your own self, your own brain and story for a while. So good. Mm-hmm. So what would you tell people who don't practice Sabbath now or are skeptical about it? What do you wish they knew about Sabbath, that you know about Sabbath, that you would want them to, would be like a motivator for them to want to try it? Does that make sense?
Go for it, Amanda.
Well, again, it's not this drudgery, I have to do this thing. It's a gift, and it's a reset. And there's so many, health benefits to this, obviously, right? I mean, I think anyone you talk to say, hey, if you just rested your body for a day and you rested your mind for a day, even if you're not a Christian, like that just makes sense.
It sure does.
Health-wise, reset-wise. But I think the Lord also, like, to connect with him in a way where when we're that much more slowed down, like we can listen,
Yeah.
you know, and I know that for me specifically, and I know that's what I want. You know, I get so frustrated and distracted with things in the middle of a week, like right now,
Yeah.
and I'm tired.
Right.
And I need that. I need that because I can't hear God really very well at this point, and I need that time to decompress and reset and reorient. That's those words. Reset,
Yes.
reorient,
Those are
rearrange, all the
really
words,
good ones.
you
Yeah.
know, and I know I need that. And it's just think about 6 months from now, a year from now,
Yeah.
doing this every week. You're not going to completely transform overnight doing this, but I think it shapes us towards
Does.
God and his kingdom and what he is longing to do in us and through us. And I think without that reset, how can we in our flesh really do that? You know, it's just difficult to hear and to stop if we don't have that.
It is.
So those were the big things.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. A similar word that I think about is recalibrate.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Excellent.
Like that's kind of how I think about it. And like if I had to tell somebody well, it's funny because my Bible study group, small group, we're going through a series right now. One of the things was Sabbath, and a lot of us in the group shared that like we don't do that, like we don't do the Sabbath, and so we were kind of just talking about different reasonings for it. And what I would say, what I've encountered by doing it is, oh man, like just the way God has just revealed himself to me through that slowdown that I don't think I would see
Right.
if I didn't.
Right.
And I think of it similarly to like any relationship I would have. Like if Emily and I never set aside time to go out and just intentionally spend time together.
Yes.
Intentionally play, intentionally be bored together.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think about, those are the times that our relationship we've had the deepest, most groundbreaking growth in our love for one another, in our friendship, in our companionship. But it's the same thing with God. If you don't intentionally set aside that time, like I think about the relationships I have where it's kind of always in passing. And you have times where you go deeper. You have times where like things are we're making contact throughout the week, and I'm seeing you, I'm talking to you, and I love you. But there's just something different about like this is our time, and I'm gonna slow down, and you're my focus, and like we are my focus, and that I don't know. That was kind of a long.
No,
answer,
I
but-
love the way you describe that. Yeah. I mean, it really is. It sounds so inviting to me, and that's how it feels to me when I do it too. It's, I just want to be with you, God, hear from you, and linger in that, like luxuriate in that, right? A little bit. And that's something that our society, at least from what I see, we don't do well because we're always thinking about or rushing to the next thing generally. Even something fun, I can tend to lament that it's over before I started it. Because I'm like, I'm going to do that and then it's going to be over, instead of like be in the moment and luxuriate in it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So all those things.
Yeah.
So there's another word that I believe I said this on last season's podcast about the Sabbath, but that it's supposed to be recreational. Sabbath is recreational for us. We think of that word recreate. Well, it's recreate. God is recreating us in that time. And that really helps me because when I think of it that way, what will refresh me? What will reorient me? Recalibrate me? What is God wanting to do in me to help recreate me too? And that's always fun for me to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, have there been any resources that have helped you with Sabbath, with thinking about Sabbath? Obviously, Scripture, but any other resources that have helped you in learning about Sabbath?
Yeah, I went to a conference, I think it was maybe 2017, 2018, and I went to this Christian conference with some church friends when I used to live in upstate New York. I was not expecting this, but one of the pastors there spoke on the Sabbath. And I remember thinking, I don't really want to go to that,
Yeah.
And his name is AJ Swoboda, and he wrote a book called The Subversive Sabbath.
Ooh.
Really, really neat. And he opened my eyes to similar things that we're talking about, the joy, the fun in it. He does this thing with his kids where the night of like leading into Sabbath, he feeds his children like a spoonful of honey, and they light candles, and they have a special feast, and they just welcome it in with such joy. And he really helped open my mind up to this aspect of it, not just the discipline, the spending time with God thing, all the good stuff there, but that it's a delight. That it's I really love his work, his book, so I would recommend checking that out.
That's really good.
I like that.
Makes me think of, so I know, Nate, your small group is studying this book, The Deeply Formed Life by Rich Villodas.
Yes.
But I loved in there, he talks about, and he lives in New York City. So the idea that I think with his kids, they start the Sabbath by going out for ice cream to their favorite ice cream place. So the same idea. And when the kids were little, it was like, they couldn't wait to do that, So to find that thing, right, that is like the sweet, the celebration, and starting it out that way, and then having it be a family time. So, you can think of all sorts of creative things to do with your kids. I mean, we have a grown son who's on his own, but it is fun to think about things you can do with your kids too, or ways for those out there who have families, young families now, ways that you can maybe, if you have a spouse, that your spouse can give you a little bit of time alone, and then you also build in some time with family, or even one-on-one with kids. All that can be part of it. Yeah.
Like, I mean, for me and Emily, like Friday nights is usually a time where we'll watch a movie, we'll go out, do something, we'll go on a date, we'll do a date night. So there's like a level of that celebration, but I love that idea of like, you're celebrating, there's something to delight in. I've always, when people have talked about that, I've always been like, that'd be so cool to like with your family, you have a feast.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you. This has been wonderful. Such rich discussion. And Nate, tomorrow's your Sabbath, so have at it.
Shabbat shalom, baby.
Shabbat shalom.
Gonna have
Enjoy.
a shebagel.
It's gonna be a good
that's
time.
Right. I hope that's not something that like I don't know what it means and it's offensive.
I hope not either, but I think it sounds very inviting.
It's inviting.
It's so great.
Okay, there we go. Shebagel.
So we're going to continue some other great podcasts in this season. The next two coming up will be living in joy, and then also living with conflict, and how to do that and having healthy relationships. So we really hope you join us, and don't forget to let us know, or like this podcast or leave comments, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for coming.